So hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Myself Amit Gowda. To explain about the comparison between the key value, document, column oriented and graph databases. So before diving into the comparison, so let's see what do you mean by NoSQL. So NoSQL database is nothing but it's a not only a structured query language database used to handle and also to store large volume of the unstructured and semi-structured data. Unstructured data is nothing but we can call it's an opposite of the structured data. So NoSQL is also termed as a alternative for the traditional database. Databases are mainly classified into four main categories. First one is a key value database, document database, and column oriented database, and graph database. So in the key value database, as the name itself suggests, key value database. It contains a particular key, and for that particular key, there can be having multiple number of values. We defined as which is used to store the data as a key value pairs and are optimized for simple and fast read write operations. So in document databases, so this databases stores the data as semi-structured documents such as JSON or XML. So JSON is nothing but JavaScript object notation. XML is nothing but extensive markup language. For this, it can be queried using a document-oriented query languages. So in document database, if you want to get queried for a particular documents, so we use this document oriented query languages, and this semi structured data is typically characterized by the use of metadata or tags that provide additional information about the data elements. So column databases. So as the name itself suggests, column database means so it organizes the data in the format of columns. Uh, Initially, in the older databases, they have been organized the information of the data in the format of rows. So it could be very complex and also lesser operations can be performed. So by use of these column databases, we can perform large number of operations, and it's very flexible. In graph database, that it is used to store the data as a format of nodes and edges. So, and most commonly, these graph databases are being used to handle very complex relationship data. Let's move on into the comparison between the databases. So that is key value, document oriented, and column oriented, and graph databases. In key value database, the data model used is key value pair. So in document database, we use this data model as JSON and BASIN. So as I told earlier, JSON is nothing but JavaScript object notation, and BASIN is nothing but binary script object notation documents. Column database, the data model used is columns itself, and whereas in graph and database, we know that they use nodes and edges, and it's schemaless in key value database, and whereas in document database, it is semi-structured, and it is semi flexible as well. Whereas in column database and graph database also the schema is schemaless. So when we compare the scalability between these databases, so generally in key value databases, it is very highly scalable. In document database also they've been scalable, but they've been depend on the size of the document. So if the size of the document is more, then it would be the scalability would may rather increase, not decrease. In column database as well, it has high scalable, but they have been optimized for read heavy workloads. Even this the scalability in graph database is also scalable. So in key value databases, the operations are basically they're limited, that is just use this get, put, and delete. And query languages in document database, document manipulation, that is MongoDB and query language. And even in column database as well, there are limited query capabilities, but they've been optimized for aggregate queries. So and the use cases in key value databases are it performs is caching, and also for the storage of the session, it plays a major role, and also for the distributed systems. Whereas in document databases, they have been used for the management of the content, and also for the user profiles and catalogs. To manage all these things, we use the document databases, because storing in document, it would be very easy to read and perform the CRUD operations. Whereas in column database, the user cases are data warehousing and also data analytics. Whereas the graph databases have been used in social networks and recommendation systems, and also in the network analysis as well. So the examples of the key value database, we can take it as Redis and React. Whereas in document database, it's MongoDB and CouchDB, and Apache, Cassandra, and HBase in column database. And in graph database, we use this Amazon Neptune. And the key value databases storage of the data is through in memory or disk, whereas in document and column and graph database, the storage of the data is through disk itself. And the if we take consistency as an comparison aspect, so it has a strong consistency for single keys in key value database, and even for the distributed operations also it has a great consistency. Document database supports its ACID transactions. The ACID transactions is nothing but atomicity, consistency, isolation, and durability. So in column database, usually eventually they will be consistent, but some support for ACID transactions, but some doesn't. So even graph database also it supports ACID transactions. So the indexing in the key value databases typically support primary and secondary index. In document supports indexing on document fields. So whereas in column databases it supports column based indexing for the efficient queries. So whereas in graph databases, indexing on nodes and edges for efficient traversal. So the performance in the key value database is very fast for simple operations. If there are very simple operations to be performed, then it would be very fast compared to all other databases, and also it would be very good for document retrieval in document databases, that is document oriented databases. Whereas in the column databases, excellent for analytical queries, but they would be very slower for updates. And in the graph databases, the complexity or the performance depends upon the what type of complexity does a graph traverses. And the integrity in the key value database is limited to constraints. Basically they focus on performance rather than the data integrity. And in document databases, constraint supports at the document level. Similar to the key value database, even in column database also limited constraint, but they focus mainly on performance. Even the concepts are also supported by the graph database as well. Flexibility, it's very flexible due to schemaless nature in key value database, whereas in document database, key flexible schema allows for diverse data, whereas in column database, limited flexibility because of column oriented structure in column database. So this graph database is completely flexible for modeling the complex relationships. So that's about the comparisons of NoSQL databases. Thank you.